am so excited. If you don't know me, you will. If you do know me, you know that I'm your bestie, I'm your sister, I'm your favorite girl's girl, and I have a mission of getting people to their purpose. I am a purpose and self confidence coach. However, for the sake of today's conversation, we will be talking about my hysterectomy. And hold on, let me just get on TikTok. I'm still trying to learn all this technical stuff, y'all. I really am. Like, bless our aged little hearts, okay? Because this is crazy. Hold on. Let's go to live. I ain't even gonna do no. Why do it have me looking like this? Okay. What's up, y'all? It's your girl Shayla Ray, and you know who I am. You may not know who I am, but if you don't know who I am, you will. And if you do know who I am, you know I'm your bestie, your sister, your favorite girl's girl with a mission of getting you to your purpose, to exactly where God wants you to be. That is my mission in life. I am so passionate about it. I'm a self confidence coach and a purpose driven coach. But for today's conversation, we are going to be speaking about women's health and my hysterectomy that I got last year in November. I learned so much, and I really feel like women need to know, what this means. What is a hysterectomy? What does it mean? Like, what should you do? Because I've been hearing some horror stories about, people who just didn't know and they were thinking that it was the right thing and it wasn't. And in news today, I have to start off by saying this. I think and I need to check. Let me actually look real quick. Hold on. So, let me just type in hysterectomy. Hold on. I'm trying to find a story. I cannot find it just by searching, and I don't want to wait, but there was a doctor, I don't remember what area it was in, but this was in the United States of America, who was giving people illegal hysterectomies. Okay. Not only was he giving illegal hysterectomies, he was making women infertile, and a lot of these women were black women. So there is a lot of controversy around hysterectomies, and I understand as a black woman, we don't really feel safe in this health system. We don't trust anything, and as we shouldn't. I think history has shown us that we have a lot to not trust. But then there's the other side. And I'm just going to speak from my own personal experience, but people ask me all the time, like, why did you get a hysterectomy? And I feel like a lot of people feel like it's something that I just elected to do because I just wanted to. But I want y'all to know, only a crazy person really would get a hysterectomy for no reason at all. I mean, I understand not wanting to have periods. Trust me, I get it. But if your periods are normal and manageable and, all of that jazz, why wouldn't you want to keep your uterus? Just for the sake of, you might find the love of your life. You might want to have a child again. Or, just because it's an organ that's supposed to be in your body, but some are not so fortunate. So I realized that I had been suffering for 10 whole years, y'all. 10 whole years of horrible periods, um, being in a chronic state of anemia. And y'all, we laugh about anemia. We make it seem like it's not a big deal. Actually, it is a big deal. And there's a lot of symptoms that come from being anemic, okay? And there's a lot of health risks down the line if you do not rectify it. When it comes to your iron, you're supposed to be, iron deficient if you are for a period of time, and then you're supposed to be not anemic anymore. And unfortunately, people sit in that chronic state of anemia. In 2023, I had gained 40 pounds. I knew I had fibroids. And fibroids is something that I think from 70 to 80% of Black women have fibroids. I have a daughter, so I do have one child that I had in 2012. And I soon after just experienced symptoms like longer periods, like heavier periods. I didn't get cramps like a lot of people because I've heard horror stories about cramps and a bunch of other symptoms that you could have. But I had fatigue. I couldn't work out. I didn't have the strength to do like a lot of things that I wanted to do. I wanted to excel in my career. I was so depleted. But for the sake of keeping my uterus, I suffered. And they have a term for it, like uterus suffering or something like that, where you just continuously suffer for the sake of keeping your uterus. But I had so much trauma, mental trauma. Imagine being in meetings and you are like bleeding out while you're talking to your manager and having a serious conversation, and the seats are gray. I had to wear black. Most of the time I didn't even buy anything white because what's the point? I just mentally, like, it was just so draining to the point that I had to wear diapers. And I'm at work with a diaper on. Y'all, it was just becoming a lot. And in 2023, after I gained all of that weight, after I had no energy and I just got tired, I said, you know what? I need to do something about this in 2024. Like, that was my reset. So I ended up going to a doctor. I ain't going to say his name because I really wasn't a fan. I'm going to be honest. And when I went to him, he kind of suggested like a hysterectomy off the bat. I wasn't expecting him to do that. I was expecting like, here's some alternatives, or here's some birth control, or here's some IUD that might help. And no, and he is not a Black male. I mean, he's not a Black male, and he is male. So it was very, very confusing, disheartening, and I was kind of angry, to be quite honest, that is what was offered to me off the bat. So I already had some type of feeling about that. But I asked him, is there anything else that I can do? And he told me, well, the only true solution to your problem is to get a hysterectomy. But if you decide that you want to keep your uterus because you might want kids down the line, then what you could do is, you get a myomectomy, which is where they cut you, they go in, they remove the fibroids, but a lot of times they do come back. Or he suggested this procedure called UFE, which is uterine fibroid embolization. And he referred me to Dr. Littman. Dr. Littman is a very, I would say, celebrity famous, like he's done the Housewives, UFE, because remember, a lot of the Housewives came out about their fibroid issues. I think Candy, Cynthia, Portia, and things of that nature. And he's just kind of like best in class for doing uterine fibroid embolization. And uterine fibroid embolization is a non-invasive procedure where they go in through your growing and they basically cut off the blood supply to the fibroids, because what's keeping them alive is the blood flow. And crazy enough, when I had that procedure, I was technically up. I mean, I was sedated, and I was supposed to be under anesthesia. And he said, you might be up for this procedure. And I definitely was. But I felt perfectly fine after that procedure. Now, this was in January 2024. And so, I was really looking forward to seeing what the results of that procedure was. But unfortunately, it wasn't an instant procedure. It was going to take several months for you to notice a change, after 3 months, 6 months. And so 3 months, 6 months, 9 months go by, and I'm still having extremely heavy periods. I go back to Dr. Littman for my follow-up, and he does another MRI, and he sees that my fibroids did shrink by like 70%. They did shrink. So UFE does work for a lot of women. It just didn't help with my symptoms, but it did shrink my fibroids, which I ended up looking back in hindsight, and that ended up being a good thing. And we'll talk about that soon. So 2025, it was just a very rough year. I mean, I was still going through heavy periods. I'm still drained. I'm still anemic. I'm still trying to figure out what am I going to do. And I just came to a point where I just did not want to suffer anymore. And then it started to get worse on top of that, because it's very complex when it comes to fibroids. It doesn't look the same for everybody. Like, you could have several fibroids. They could be in your uterine wall. They could be outside of your uterus. They could be sitting on your bladder. These benign tumors, depending on where they are, depending on how many you have, makes things more complex. So I decided I was going to meet back up with my doctor because I wanted to get a hysterectomy, and so I met up with that particular doctor who was my gynecologist, honestly. And he was like, okay, well, let's get you scheduled. He's showing me what my options are. He's like, you're going to have a cesarean cut from here to here. We'll go in, we'll take out your uterus if you're getting a partial. Now, a partial hysterectomy is when they just take out your uterus and they leave your ovaries. If you have a full hysterectomy, that means they take out your uterus and your ovaries, and that will send you directly into menopause. I'm still not ready for menopause yet, and it's no reason that I needed to take out my ovaries, so I was going to be definitely getting a partial. However, they also can remove some other things. Your cervix, and a lot of times people should get their cervix removed because you can get cervical cancer. And then also they can remove your fallopian tubes, because your fallopian tubes are where ovarian cancer can start. I didn't know that at this time, okay? I didn't know what to do, okay? I'm just like, okay, you saying uterus, fallopian tube, cervix, like, what does this mean for my sex life? What does this mean? Not that I have one, but what does it mean, for how am I gonna feel? He's like, nothing's gonna change, We're just gonna go in there, cut you from here to here, and take your uterus out. Now, mind you, y'all, I told you I have a daughter. I had my daughter vaginally. I had my daughter at 28. Okay. I had never been cut, not even for uterine fibroid embolization, because that was an incision. So that was more of a procedure. So I've never been cut from here to here. Now, a lot of times when women, get hysterectomies, they get myomectomies where they go in, same as a cesarean cut, take out all the fibroids and sew you back. So it's very much like a cesarean section. Or if you have a child, there's so many people I know that have C-sections when they have their children. Now that's another conversation for a completely another day. But I didn't want to be cut. So I'm asking him, I'm like, is there any other thing? He's like, no, that's the procedure. That's what it is. So I'm like, okay, well, I'll call and schedule when I'm ready. So I was talking to one of my girlfriends, and she was like, they have other procedures, that you can do outside of them doing that. I'm like, for real? She's like, they have robotic, laparoscopic. Like, she was throwing out these words, and I like literally searched robotic, laparoscopic, all of that. And I came up and found a doctor who was wonderful. She was actually wonderful. Black woman. And I set up a consultation with her. So when I go in, she's feeling my uterus, and she's like, you're about 14 weeks. It's like your uterus is the size of like if you were 14 weeks pregnant with the fibroids. She's like, but I think I would be able to get it out. And I'm like, get it out? What is she talking about? She's talking about a procedure that was not laparoscopic. It was not robotic, but it was a procedure where they go in through your vagina. They actually pull your uterus out through your vagina. They take your cervix out through your vagina. They take your fallopian tubes out through your vagina, and they don't have to cut you from here to here. Because even with the laparoscopic and even with the robotic, they have to like go in, cut you down here a little bit. I have heard horror stories from people, worse stories from people who did the laparoscopic and robotic than even the cesarean section. But she did let me know that my uterus was 14 weeks and that she might not be able to get it out. Like she made that very, very clear from the beginning. I even had to sign something that said, if she can't get it out, then I'm going to wake up on the table and I'm going to be cut from here to here, cesarean section style, because she would still have to go in and get it when I'm under anesthesia. So I was nervous because I'm like, oh, am I going to be able to like get this done? Is my uterus going to be too big? I really, really wanted this vaginal hysterectomy. And I don't think a lot of people understand or know about the vaginal hysterectomy because I didn't even know. I was searching laparoscopic when I found out about it. So went in for the procedure. Procedure was like 3.5 hours. Woke up. I look at the nurse. I'm like, did she cut me? He was like, no, she was able to get it out. I was like, oh my gosh. So, you had stitches on the inside. It still was a very much so a healing process. Like I had gas, constipation, but fortunately, and I was so fortunate, I did not take the actual, opioids that was prescribed to me because I didn't feel like, sorry, my dog wants to come up. I didn't feel like I needed it, even though I was in pain, but I have a high tolerance of pain. So everybody might not, be like me, but I just took the Tylenol and, kind of managed my pain in that particular way. So that's that. I mean, if you know anybody who wants to get a hysterectomy and they're saying, and it's not a want, but they feel like they need to get a hysterectomy and they want to understand their options, tell them to reach out to me, 1. 2, if you're in the Atlanta area, I can suggest a wonderful doctor that I know will take care of you in the way that you need to be taken care of, okay? So, why did I personally get a hysterectomy? Like I said, I was struggling. I was nearly suffering for 10 years, and it was just something that I wanted to be free from. It literally controlled my whole entire life. If I went on a vacation, it was like my period came like clockwork, right? A lot of trauma, a lot of just anemia, a lot of just issues, and it was keeping me from excelling in life, and it was really truly impacting my everyday life. How was the healing process for me? I think fairly with the vaginal hysterectomy, it was manageable. I did get an infection a little bit the halfway through. And then I had gotten a bug, like, the flu and stuff was just going around, or people were sick, and I still had to do everything as a mother. But gratefully, I had time off of work to kind of just rest and heal and give myself that 6-week time frame to really let my stitches dissolve. I couldn't lift more than 10 pounds. Things of that nature. How do you know you should get a hysterectomy? It's tough, guys. It's a very tough decision. And like I said, it's not the same for every single person. But I think a lot of women have began to normalize their periods being absolutely horrific as if it's normal, and it's not. It's not normal. I've heard people talking about they throw up, they're in pain, they have horrible PMS. These are things that should not be happening as a result. And then I also found out when I went in for my consultation that I had fluid in the lining of my uterus. Now, I did start to get chronic sharp pains to my stomach. I did. And so we all know that can turn into uterine cancer, and all of that. So I will say this. I am so happy on this side of the fence, you guys. Do you see the glow? Do you see the skin? Hold on. Do you see the happiness on my face? Now, I will say, during my healing process, it was a lot to manage. Not just physically, but also mentally. I felt very lonely. I didn't feel like my friends or anybody really just came. It's just like, oh, she's getting a hysterectomy, like it's nothing. And it actually is something, you know what I mean? And I would have loved for my friends to come visit me, come see me, support me in some way, shape, or form. And there were a few that really did come through. But all in all, I just had a lot of time to think to myself, like, dang, am I just the fun girl that people want to just hang with? Like, because ain't your friend supposed to be there for you when you down and in need? So that was going through my head. Also thinking about being a single woman and not being in a relationship with somebody. Like, do you tell them off the bat, oh, I ain't got no uterus, so if you want kids, it ain't nothing. I think you should. I really think you should, because what's the point of falling in love with somebody? Now, if they say, oh, I don't care. But if that man does not have a child, I don't even want that type of, I don't want to put that on nobody anyway. So, was thinking about that. It was just a lot of me time that I think I needed. But yeah, but after this hysterectomy, y'all, okay, where am I now? Mentally, I'm in a great place. I'm still feel like my period is coming, though, in my brain. Like, I feel like it's just going to pop up one day. And like, because when you have had a period for so long, it is just like hard for your brain to reconcile that you really were never going to have a period again. I really will never have to buy pads, diapers, tampons, because that's what I used to all have to wear together when I did have a period. And that is just a wonderful feeling. I don't have to feel fearful about what color I wear on a specific day. I can wear white. If I'm going on a vacation, I don't have to check my calendar and see if I'm going to be on my period, and can I wear a bathing suit? I mean, it's so many things that make me feel free. And another reason why I did choose to get a hysterectomy, even though I was at my wit's end, I wanted to have some peace after all of the suffering that I had done for 10 years. 10 years, a decade. I wanted to have some peace so that I could get myself in the best shape of my life for before before menopause, because we all know that menopause is knocking right on our Eve. We're mad at you. We're mad at you, Eve, because we are tired. Okay, why do we have to continuously suffer over and over and over again? But I feel during my healing process, I felt very tired, and I still feel tired. And my doctor said it could be a few months until I'm not tired anymore. I'm taking my iron, and I just want to be a resource for women. Like I said, I've heard some horror stories about laparoscopic, robotic. I would love to hear from people that did get that. I know that some incisions do have to be made typically with those procedures. Did you know about the vaginal hysterectomy as an option? I would love to hear more for women, but I'm 42 years old. Yes, black does not crack. And I felt like this is the start of a new life for me. Um, Not having periods has given me the ability to work out. I've dropped those 40 pounds. I'm able to have the energy to actually work out. And it's just a blessing. It's a lot that women go through. But again, if you have any questions about hysterectomies, what you should do, because I interviewed even several women before my hysterectomy, and several women are getting hysterectomies every single day, and a lot of black women. But you're not alone. If you have fibroids or endometriosis or, some other reproductive disorder, I feel your pain. I definitely feel your pain, and I just want to be a resource. So if you want to reach out to me, you can reach out to me on TikTok at Essence of You. If you want to reach out to me on Instagram, Shayla Ray Vibe, please do not hesitate to reach out. Like, this is a big decision to make. It's a huge procedure, and it's just one that, it's very complex. It's mental, it's physical, it's tied to your womanhood. But again, I feel so much better on this side of the fence. I truly do. But that's what worked for me. And it might not work for you, and you might want to do something else, and that's okay too. But share this with someone who might be interested in understanding more about what a hysterectomy is. And yeah, I hope this helps. My name is Shayla Ray. I appreciate you guys. Take care. Peace. Yeah, y'all. I am tired as we speak. But God is good. God is so good. I am free from my uterus. I am free from the pain the anguish, the constant just embarrassment. Like, I am free. So, I have my daughter, of course, which I'm so grateful and blessed that I had my daughter. And there are some women who are confronted with having to have a hysterectomy prior to them having children, and they always wanted children. So that makes things a lot more complex. Don't get me wrong. But for me, I'm so blessed to have a wonderful daughter. I have my dog, Coco. She sleep, y'all. She look a little messy right now. Poor baby need a bath. I'm sorry. I don't even want to show her to y'all. And if I do get in a relationship with someone who I can't have children with, I'm at peace with that. I'm at peace with that. And adoption is always an option. There's so many people. It's nothing against IVF, okay? I understand that people truly want to have their DNA used and have their own babies, but there are a lot of children out here who need safe homes, loving homes. And, if I ever did want children again, that is definitely something that I would do. I don't really see that being my future, but it's an option. It's definitely an option. So, I'm at peace. I'm period free. Your girl is happy, and your girl is ready to soar, okay? Because I never had the energy. Think about wanting to pursue goals outside of your 9 to 5. If you're struggling in your 9 to 5 because you have nothing to give, you really can't think about outside of your 9 to 5. But now we're here. Now we are here. And I'm excited. I am excited for the future. You guys follow me on IG, TikTok. I'm just getting started. But it's going to be great conversations that we have about life, about getting to our purpose and our pursuits, about getting back to who we were before the world tried to change us. And yeah, I think I'm doing the Lord's work. I know I am, actually. So thank you guys for tuning in. I will be back, and I will be on a regular cadence, and I am going to be starting my full-time YouTube channel very, very soon. But I hope this conversation helps somebody. And like I said, if you have more in-depth questions or I didn't touch on something, please reach out and let me know. And I got you. I'm your bestie. I'm your sister. I'm your favorite girl's girl. Like, I'm going to give you the real tea.